Hey everybody, it's Pigs Eat People here. Expect a lot of gore and death because my name, Pigs Eat People, in turn, ensues death because a pig is eating someone. But anyways, let's get right into it. We continue our story right after Izuku won the sports festival. And they're about to get their... Excuse me. They're about to get their internships, their first internships. And, Deku gets Endeavor. The only one who took him was Endeavor. Mostly because a lot of heroes saw Deku absolutely brutalize Shinso. But Endeavor, the only reason he chose him is because Todoroki demanded he choose him. And so Deku arrives. Todoroki, a bit more himself, says, "Hey, buddy," and they shake hands again, and they chill. And then Deku, I guess they just do some basic things. Endeavor tells him some pointers on how to use his big weight to his advantage. But don't expect it to be your ace in the fight. Mostly it's just basic knowledge. Deku's mostly not listening at all because he already knows this stuff. And it's mostly just chatting with Todoroki, which is also what Todoroki is doing with Deku. Just nice chats. Then, in a bit, the Hosu city is attacked. Deku appears, murders a whole bunch of Nomu with Endeavor and Todoroki. Eventually, Deku sees the bird Nomu flying off, so Deku jumps on it, starts strangling it, but it's like flying all over the place, and then eventually it just slams through a freaking building. And then Deku kills it with a neck snap behind a dumpster. And then Deku climbs out of the area with the Nomu's body. Then seeing Stain about to kill Ida, so B just chucks the Nomu, slamming straight into Stain. And Stain just stabs it, and then the blood goes into his mouth. But this time, he starts coughing, and then he starts bubbling up, and then just dies. Because this Nomu in this timeline was poisoned, mostly because they saw Izuku eat the original Nomu, thinking that Deku would eat another one, but hopefully this one, but they were wrong. And then Deku just picks up Ida and leaves. And then the Hosu incident is stopped while Stain is just left there dead in an alley. Well, that's it for that arc. Well, the next arc is the overhaul arc now. Let's get into that. Alright, Deku's going into his next internship with with them getting introduced to the three guys, and Deku just staring freaking thumb eyes, you know, sat staring at me with them eyes. What eyes? Just staring directly at him. Finally realizing, after, for some reason, Sun Eater just uses Conqueror's Hockey, realizes he has an animal-based power. So he gets up, just starts walking up to him. That's till Muriel steps in front of him, telling him, "Would you like to talk to me?" And Muriel, yeah, does sense his friend is a bit concerned on this big crocodile guy pulling up on him. So Muriel just appears, says, "Do you want to fight?" And Decker just agrees with it. So Aizawa has to bring all of Class 1A, expecting Deku to just get his ass eaten. But when Mirio, uh, you know, strips down, Mirio expected Deku to be shocked, but Deku just stood there, unfazed. He's seen much more disgusting bodies. Remember, hobos, they usually don't have clothes if they live under the sewers. Then Mirio tries to jump at Deku, punching at him, but Deku just eats the punch and just doesn't feel it, which stops Mirio for a split second. That split second giving Deku the chance to just wallop him right out of the phase through stuff, which basically just shocks him for a bit. And then Deku gets two good hits in, like a whack to the ground, picks him off the ground, spins him, and then pim slaps him in the nuts and slams him into the ground. Then Mirio gets his bearings and then realizes he's gonna have to do a little more punches than just one. So Mirio starts spawning behind Deku, even creating clones of himself. If you're wondering how he's doing that, he's making sculptures of himself by putting himself in a rock, destroying the rock, then carrying out a mold of his face, then throwing the face out of the ground, and then phasing through a different direction. So Deku only sees Mirio's head, and he just grabs it, spins it, and then slams it into Mirio's head, his real one. The stone one, Deku didn't fall for it, and picks up Mirio and throws him, but Mirio, before he could be thrown, phased through, then phased through Deku's arm, and then punched him in the face, and then he starts swallowing on Deku, but it's not doing a lot. Like, he's not moving at all, but he is making his chin move a bit when he's walloping him. And then Deku goes for a chin smack. Deku tries to go for he tries to go for a chin smack with his feet. Deku grabs his leg and then spins him. Think like a Yujiro when he picks up Baki. And then he does the exact same move Yujiro does to Baki. And it's just a and then eventually Mirio gets his bearings barely and phases through. He's not failing this time, so then he phases to the ground and then tries to strike at Deku, but Deku just ducks it, picks him up like a freaking sack of potatoes, and then about to do instead of doing a suplex, he backpedals and slams him into the ground. A back suplex, where you fall on your back with the guy on your shoulders. I think that's what it's called. And then Deku picks up his legs. By the way, Mirio's naked, and Deku's picking him up without hesitation to just throw him around. He's not disgusted if he touches his member. And he's done it multiple times in this fight. So Mirio is getting a bit exhausted, but he's not giving up because he wants to prove a point that he can't just bully around people. But Deku was just going to ask him some questions. Mirio doesn't know that. So Mirio stomps on the ground, brings a plate up, throws it like a frisbee, then jumps onto the frisbee, phase through it, then his feet get connected to it, then he throws it with his feet which makes it go downwards, which gets Deku in the knee, which makes him buckle a bit, which gives Mirio a good chance to jump from behind, and then drop kick him in the back, which does push him down, but doesn't keep him down for long. So while Mirio is celebrating, in his mind, Deku's already up and slams him his fist into his gut. Then freaking just throws him against a brick wall, freaking ricocheting off it. And then Mirio spits out spit, and then picks up some pebbles and then starts throwing them. But Deku just eats all those in the literal sense. He like bites all of them, and then he spits them back at Mirio faster than Mirio's throw. So he has to phase. But right after the phase is done, Deku's already on him. But Mirio luckily got a phase off, so he got a good hook in there. So he flips him. He actually gets a real good hook in. He phased through the ground, then went really far down. Then Deku got a bit worried because, oh shoot, did the guy get exhausted and his quirk just activated and he's unconscious and he's phasing through the earth? But luckily for Deku, not doing another murder to a student, not killing a student this time, Mirio comes back up and just clocks Deku super hard in the chin, spinning him in the air. And then Mirio breaks off a couple more frisbees and just chucks him at Deku. Deku bites onto one of them, grabs two, and then kicks the last one. And then he throws one, takes the other one out of his mouth, throw the one at his mouth. Then he throws the one that was in his other arm. And then Mirio breaks all of them. And eventually but Deku does get the upper hand eventually. That fight took forever. His clothes are actually were beaten straight off. It's kind of fair. They're both nude. Obviously, Mirio being more battered than Deku, but Deku still being a bit exhausted from all the swinging and tactics he had to use. What's crazy? Deku um, starts talking and saying that I have no idea why you wanted to start this fight, but I will win. And Mirio then says, "Hey, you know why I started this fight, too." Oh my god, it's so tiring. Because you were about to bully my friend. Is this what it's about? Well, you're dead wrong, bro. I was just gonna ask him some questions. Really? Well, the battle still has to continue, so... And then Mirio weakly puts up his arms. Deku does the same. Let's go. And then they run at each other. Then Deku swings at Mirio. Mirio having basically only one last punch in him, phases through Deku's body, and then hooks upwards to hit Deku in the face. But he gets it. Deku falls a bit back, but then Deku lifts his leg up and just drop kicks Mirio to the ground, folding him, knocking him out. But Deku is still up. He falls to the ground, but he still wins. He gets up and is still conscious, just exhausted. And then Deku gets up, walks over to Mirio to talk to Sun Eater, and then actually speaks to him on how his quirk works. Then they have a good talk about how Sun Eater's quirk works and how Deku's quirk works. It was a very Then after Mirio wakes up with Sun Eater and Natsure being right next to him, and they say that he beat him, that you lost, Mirio. Then Mirio says, that kid's way stronger than all of us. Not combined, though. Yeah. Little did they know, Deku never bulked up in this state. Then afterwards, Deku gets, then Miria shows up to give him an offer to join Sir Night-Eye's group, and then well, he gets there, then Sir Night-Eye tells him he has to get him, but little does Deku know that Sir Night-Eye has a mind reading quirk, future reading quirk, but he can't read how people's quirks work, right? No, he can. He can predict what Deku's about to do. Deku bulks up and tries to immediately swat at Sir Night-Eye. Sir Night-Eye dodges it, barely. Throws a couple staples at Deku, which Deku actually dodges. Then spins, and then tries to go for a freaking double fist gut punch. Sir Night-Eye jumps over him, but Deku jumps upwards, and Sir Night-Eye has to freaking curve his entire body, like almost breaking his back, just to not be touched. And Sir Night-Eye has to that puts some cover fire so his back can heal. But Deku just keeps eating all the freaking staples, even grabbing one and throwing it back at Sir Night-Eye. But Sir Night-Eye can just reflect it with another one. Then Deku tries to get a grab off. Sir Night-Eye keeps dodging. But until then Sir Night-Eye does one more mistake. He throws one more stamp, but Deku's knows his strategy now. So he grabs it this time, but instead of which pretends he's about to throw it. He pretends he's about to throw it, but he doesn't. Then Sir Night-Eye gets confused because that's what he predicted. But then Deku just slaps him straight on the ground. And then Deku wins. The Deku gets to be in his area. And Sir Night-Eye reaches his hand up, which Deku just immediately grabs and lifts him up like a doll. And then Deku just heads out. But then Mirio and Deku go for a walk, Deku being in his less buff form. And they have a nice walk until a kid bumps into Deku. Then Deku looks down, and Eri gets scared. She just assumed this guy was working for Overhaul because of his scary looks. Until Deku kneels and actually shows a genuine smile, and Eri then calms down. And then they start talking, well, until a certain someone shows up, Overhaul. Overhaul then tries to take his glove off, but Deku has that demon, like this crocky sense, so he knows his dad just about to show up. So he just picks up Eri and starts sprinting. Like he bulks up quickly, picks up Eri, and then just sprints. Then Mirio just phases through the ground and just runs. They just start freaking sprinting away. Then Mirio goes under a car, flips it over, so Overhaul has to take his glove off fully and disintegrate, and then blow it up, make it into a freaking spear, and then throw it. And throw it to the big guy, the guy that beat the shiz out of Kirishima. Threw it to him, he grabbed it, then he threw it. But Deku actually gets stabbed through, like his arm, completely stabbed through, because, and then Deku takes the blade out of his shoulder and then throws it back. But the Giganto guy reflects it. By reflects it, I mean he punches it away. Luckily, it only landed into a building and not killed anyone. And then Deku just sprinting with one arm almost being numb, but it's still being able to work. And then Deku's just freaking sprinting. But Overhaul then destroys the ground towards Airy and then starts shooting up spikes. But Deku jumps up onto a building on his weak arm, grabs it. It spills out blood, but Deku just leaps up the building. And then Overhaul immediately launches the the punchy guy up and then tries to punch at Deku, but Mirio shows up through the building with a freaking stop sign, just smacks the goofy out of the the punchy guy. But sadly for Mirio, the guy was too fast for him, just popped Mirio in the gut and shot him forward ahead of Deku and Eri. But at least he was able to phase through another building. And then Deku's just sprinting away from the punchy guy, but the punchy guy keeps throwing objects at him, which he has like a freaking a, and then he's like throwing it like a precision sniper, and he keeps getting hit with freaking radiators and piece of rubble. And then Deku sees that his arm is healing. He is a mutant, so he has to keep sprinting. Then he just completely destroys a wall. By the way, he checks, and Aries still there. But she's freaking out, crying, saying to just let her go. But Deku's just saying, hell no. Then Mirio shows. Deku appears. Well, Mirio appears under Deku and then just launches him up to a building, which the punch guy just landed down, and then just immediately pim slaps Mirio again, shoots him through a couple freaking buildings until he phases through them. The the punchy guy and the shield guy work together, with the shield guy making a tiny shields for him to jump up to. Then he makes a big one, and then a tiny one that and then expanded the uh, the shield to make him launch. And then he starts freaking charging up a punch, like he starts punching his hands. And then he charges one up, but the smack the out of Deku. So Deku just throws Eri off the building. But you're wondering why? Because Mirio was right there, grabs her, and then they both phase through brick. And then Mirio starts freaking swimming through the brick and then shoots out. Then just starts sprinting away. Yeah, by the way, Deku just got his rocked. His teeth some of his teeth just got shot out. His skull is cracked. He just got flinged through like 100 buildings. Probably more. But then this is when Deku yells. Then he just immediately regenerates all the wounds he just took in this battle. Then he just bulks up even more. He even grows a tail and more crocodile features. And then just starts freaking jumping. He starts jumping from building to building, crashing through them, and then jumping through them again. Finally, he gets back to the punchy guy. Punchy guy just tries to throw another punch, but he catches it, twists his arm, which completely scares him because his punches usually just knock people out, like how Mirio was. But Deku just freaking wallops on him. But the punchy guy is trying to finish this quick so he can catch up with Eri. But he just can't because Deku was just not letting him go. Eventually, Deku's getting the upper hand, just freaking walloping on my guy, and then just starts slamming him through freaking floors. Eventually, he throws him to a different building, shooting him through upwards, through the sky, through the roof, onto a different building. Deku follows him, then he freaking uses his tail as a launching apparatus from the guy's arm, shooting him a bit into the ceiling. Deku then just spins, and then just starts making a drill motion with his mouth, and then just slams the guy into the building, destroying the whole building with his thing. Luckily, it was under construction, so no one was in there. And plus, it was a weekend, so no one was in there. So everyone's good. And then Deku just eat. And then Deku just starts freaking opening up, stabs into the punchy guy, and then tears out a part of his flesh. And his organs spill out, and then the guy screams. And then Deku grabs the guy's mask and tears it off. And then we see his face, and then Deku just pummels his face. Then just starts shattering the guy's ribs. He just starts beating in all of his bones, cracking his skull, breaking his hands, and then actually tearing off one of his arms, and then just starts eating him. And then after he eats all of him but his mask, he leaves. The shield guy shows up, but Deku just immediately blitzes the guy before he could make a shield and crushes him with one punch. Like he explodes. And then Deku runs away. Until Overhaul catches up to him, tries to get him with a slap, but he dodges it immediately, and then bites his arm and tears it off. Then does like a twirl, bites his arm, and then tears it. Then the Overhaul screams in pain. Then he remembers his boss. Then gets furious. Then remember the bullet guy who was on the building. He shot the bullet, but Deku just picked up a rock, threw it, and then it bit into it. Then the guy ran down towards Overhaul after Deku was like a pretty marginal way. He slaps him, explodes him, then rejuvenates him to him, and then he becomes the big bird, and then grabs onto Deku and throws him into the air. And eventually, oh, I legit just realized that I skipped a couple arcs. Let's just say that we're doing this earlier than usual. Yeah, okay, just deal with it. Just say, let's just say in this timeline, uh, they got to meet the 3 special guys. I'm very bad at this whole storytelling thing. I'm kidding. I just didn't realize I skipped a couple arcs. Man, I really skipped a whole bunch of arcs. Okay, let's just say... No, I need to stop explaining it. Let's just say it happened a bit earlier than it. A lot earlier this time. And Deku just starts getting slammed around. Okay, now let's get back right to it. Obviously, Deku's getting slammed around, just goofed up. Just immediately goofed. He's barely alive right now. Until Mirio, All Might, remember he's still here because this is a couple months earlier, Endeavor, Todoroki, because Todoroki's always next to Endeavor, Sir Night Eye, and basically everyone who's important shows up. And then they just immediately start bodying Overhaul because Overhaul could not beat All Might. Especially before his all for one bite. Yeah, so basically he just gets clapped up. Then All Might hits him with like a consecutive punch with you plus, and then Endeavor then starts doing a spin, starts spinning, making it All Might's punch like a comet. While Deku is just laying there in pain, shrinking, who already shrank back to his original size. Knocked out. All Might then starts swinging. And slams into Overhaul's head, exploding it, revealing revealing Overhaul, which Endeavor takes care of immediately by tearing him out of it, and then just throwing him towards All Might, who catches him, and then just catches him on his face, knocking him out. And that's the Overhaul arc. Well, that's where I'm going to leave things for now. Like, subscribe, hit the post notification bell. That helps me with everything I need for my 50 subscriber special. See y'all later. Sorry for skipping a couple arcs, but we'll cover those later. Be-byes. You're the best. Remember that. Never forget it.